one is a meals expense. Now, see, I'll tell you a little bit of history behind it. Now, when you're doing these, always keep in your mind that I'm doing it for a sole proprietor. Okay. So let's say if I'm a sole proprietor, okay, and I start going on my personal vacations, and what used to happen earlier was they used to have something called an entertainment expense deduction, and then they used to have meals deduction. Okay. Now, what generally the entrepreneurs started doing was that it was very difficult to draw a line and say that when you're going in for entertainment, how much of business you are mixing with the entertainment. So I can go on a vacation, and then I can, I can have a couple of days for my personal reason, and then I can just have a business or otherwise, right? So let's say I'm going for clubs, meetings, parties, and the US Open and all of that, and probably there was a lot of misuse that was happening of this. So what they did was this. They said that, see, nothing for entertainment. I'm not going to allow you any deduction for entertainment. So you entertain your client by taking them to clubs, by giving them memberships, by sending them to operas. That's your business. But I am not going to allow this to you as a deduction. Yes, if it's a business meal and you tell me that you were there along with your client, then this is something that is unavoidable. And I have laid down the condition for you. If you meet all of those conditions, you're going to get that as a deduction. Okay, so remember, one cardinal rule for business meals: no deduction for entertainment. So, what are the things? First thing, entertainment expenses not deductible. So no clubs, yachts, operas, Broadways, no deduction. Business meals are the only thing which is allowed as a deduction. So the deductibility is not for entertainment expenses, only for business meals. How and when? Only when these conditions are fulfilled. The expenses are ordinary, necessary, reasonable. We already said this, right? The first time when we started with business expense, we already informed that there are three main prerequisites: ordinary, necessary, reasonable. Now, this is very important. You have to be physically there, or you have to be represented by an employee of yours. It cannot be that you're just giving a voucher to somebody, that you go, I have a client, I have a business partner, and I just ask him, take a voucher and you go and dine somewhere. That is not allowed as a deduction. It has to be provided to somebody with whom you have current, or you're trying to develop a business relationship in future. And be very clear that it cannot be that on your judgment basis you're going to split the bill into entertainment and business. No, I want the proofs to be completely segregated. So if you have, if you have allowed you, so everybody went for an outbound, and so it shouldn't be that I take you to a place far away and then we play golf and then we also have food. Playing golf should be separate, food should be separate. Then only I will give you as a business expense. Otherwise, no. What are the limits? This is very important. Start this. Okay. First thing, whenever a meal is provided by a restaurant for business purposes, which are ordinary, reasonable, necessary, attended by the taxpayer or his employee, given to a potential or current customer, and having a separate bill, you get 100% business deduction for that. However, if the meals are not provided by the restaurant, you get only a 50% deduction. Taxes, tips, and parking fees that you pay whenever you're going to a restaurant or otherwise are going to get deduction of the same kind as what you're going to. So pair this up with this, or pair it up with this. If you get 100% meal deduction, you will get 100% taxes, tips, and parking fees. If you get a 50% deduction for meals, you get a 50% deduction for taxes, tips, and parking fees. If there are meals provided in the office premises, quote unquote, for the convenience of the employer, not your condition. Okay, so not for the convenience, not for the employee, not for the convenience of the employee. Okay, not of the employee, but of the employer. Again, since they're not provided in the restaurant, you can only get a 50% deduction, not 100% deduction. Also remember this. That means what? 100% deduction for only two things, either provided by restaurant or incurred when the company has taken you for picnics. Okay, so I still remember when I was in ITC, we used to have these yearly outbounds where the company used to take us as a whole. We used to go and stay in some sort. They took us to a golf club once, and then they had somebody who was organizing these leadership and team building activities for us. Right? I've heard of companies who take their senior officials for mountaineering expeditions because they think that the leadership training can be developed there. All of those things where you have taken the entire group together for a business purposes on a picnic or an outbound, you get 100% deduction. But if Google has a canteen in which you're allowed to eat when you're working in the office, that's 50% deductible. So 100% is only for restaurant, okay, and picnics. Else it is 50%. Remember that. Else it is 50%. One more thing that you need to register is this. Certain things that you keep in mind. For these things, we will not give you any deduction. Transportation to and from a meal, no deduction. So if you're submitting me a bill saying that I took the client to a meal and going expense, I took a cab, coming back, I took a cab, no deduction. You are accompanied by a spouse who has no business relationship, no deduction. If you have gone outside for a travel purpose, overnight travel, and there was meal that you had, you're going to book it as a travel expense, not as a meal deduction. So it's either travel or meal, not both. Entertainment, strict no. So SWAT, swimming, a yacht, swimming pools, bowling alleys, all of that not allowed as deduction. No room rent allowed as a deduction. And if you're going to a supermarket to pick up those dry food and then you're going to cook it, no deduction. Okay. No deduction for that. So these are small stuff, but keep in mind, throw this to you in your questions. Now, areas, if you get a question from these areas, you should never, never get it wrong. These are that simple. Okay, that's it. Just look for certain questions now. Very, very key. So, what are the keywords? 100% deductible if it is in a restaurant or in a picnic. 50% deductible, employer's place for the convenience of the employer. If it's not a restaurant, even if you're traveling outside, if it's a meal expense provided by the restaurant, 100%, not provided by the restaurant, 50%. Okay, which of the following fringe benefits? Fringe benefits means in-kind benefits. They have not given you dollar, but they've given you a facility which you can enjoy. Is not subject to a 50% limit. That means you get a 100% deduction for that. For which ones? I know there are only two. A restaurant and picnic. So wherever I find restaurant or picnic, I'm going to get that as a deduction. Work site, no. This is 50%. I will not get that as a deduction. Meals furnished to your employees as part of bingo. We've got this. This is our answer. This area is extremely simple, guys. You just need to catch hold of certain keywords, use it, and sort the question out. Is it clear? Everybody. See, when it doesn't matter if it is provided at your employee's place, it doesn't matter for whose convenience is it, for how many people. Are 20 people benefiting, 200 or 2000? It's immaterial. If it is for your convenience at your place, it is 50% deductible. This is also 50% deductible. Not at a restaurant, 50% deductible. Okay? So this one is 100% deductible. That's the answer. Now look at the next one. Okay? What is your total deductible expense for both the tickets? You're a self-employed caterer, and to encourage the continuation of an existing business relationship, you took one of your clients to a Broadway show. Entertainment. Understand that this is an entertainment expense which is disallowed. Only if there's food here, that will be allowed. The visit to the show occurred directly after a substantial business discussion with that client. You paid 2 tickets, and the face value of each was 100. You paid 200. What is the amount of deduction? No deduction. It's an entertainment expense, no deduction. Okay, so entertainment, no deduction. Now look at this. How much of the dues, meals, and entertainment can Mr. Trent deduct in the current year? Okay. During the current year, Mr. Trent paid 10,000 in membership dues to a local country club. Membership dues is entertainment, not deductible. His records reflected that he used the club as follows: personal use, business use. It is an irrelevant, redundant data, not useful to me, not allowed. His records also showed that he paid $3,000 for meals, quote unquote, provided by a restaurant. So this is not allowed. This is 100% deductible since it is provided by a restaurant. The answer becomes B. Very good. And the last one. What amount is deductible by Mr. S as a meal expense in the current year? Mr. S is an independent sales representative and incurred the following expenses in the current year: rent for a hospitality room at a convention that displayed Mr. S's business product. So, in one of the companies that I have worked, we used to hold lots of events. It was a publishing company, and I was in the finance department there. And so, one of the events, Infocom is one of the very big events that is organized in India, where you have IT people from all the different walks of life were invited to become keynote speakers. So I remember one such meeting was held in ITC Shunar Bangla in Kolkata. And imagine if I wanted a speaker to come, or if so I'm arranging for his room rent and I'm also arranging for his stay and all of that. Again, entertainment not allowed as a deduction. Breakfast at a restaurant for three of Mr. S's business associates and their spouses. Not allowed. The morning of a convention where Mr. and Mrs. Thomason were attending. So, whatever is there, I'm going to divide it by two because that's going to become half. Spouses not allowed as a deduction. Dinners and other meals paid for by Mr. S in a reciprocal entertainment situation with other business associates. Now, what is a reciprocal entertainment situation? Now, see, I don't know if you guys have watched a movie called Holiday. Okay. It talks about a lady who's in the UK and she's very depressed. Ireland or UK, I'm not too sure, but she's very depressed because she's generally taken for granted. And there's somebody who's staying in a very high profile place, self made woman who's very, who's very influential and who's very assertive. So this is a lady who's not assertive. So we have a switch. Both of them are depressed at one point of time. This lady comes and stays in the house at UK, and this lady goes and stays in the house in LA, and their lives changed. This is reciprocal. You come, so it's immaterial how much was paid, how much was the value, who paid more value, who paid less value. It is reciprocal. It's not allowed as a deduction. How much deduction you will get? 120.